In today's Iran, a child can be punished for the sound of their own mother's voice. For over 80 years, millions of South Azerbaijani Türk children have entered school speaking Turkish and learned that their language is a crime. This episode of Unmasking Persia exposes how the Iranian state, built on a fabricated identity, uses language as its sharpest weapon to silence, to shame, and to erase. This is not just education. It is language apartheid, and its story begins in the classroom.
Welcome to Unmasking Persia, a space where we re-examine what has long been presented as unquestionable truth.
In our last deep dive, we began looking into that whole idea, that narrative of a single, unified Persian identity being, well, maybe constructed. Today, we're going to follow that thread and look at a key tool used to enforce it: language. Specifically, what is, you could argue, the regime's most silent, yet maybe its most powerful weapon.
And how that weapon, language, dictates who gets seen, who gets heard, basically who has political and social visibility within the geography currently called Iran.
Exactly. And we'll focus today on the South Azerbaijani Turks and their experience with this system.
Because in this political geography, it really feels like the words you use can decide, almost literally, who is human and who is invisible.
It's a stark reality, and it starts incredibly early, the moment a child from that community steps into school.
It's something many of our viewers, especially those from places like Tabriz or Urmu, know firsthand. You walk into school at age 6 or 7 speaking Turkish.
The language of your home, your family, everything you know.
And almost immediately, you're taught, implicitly or explicitly, that this language is wrong. It's something to be ashamed of.
And this isn't just, social pressure. It's institutionalized. There's a specific legal foundation for this linguistic exclusion, going way back.
It was codified, not just sort of ambient by.
Oh, absolutely codified. This dates back to the Pahlavi era. Yeah, to Reza Shah's push for, forced nationalism and homogenization.
Why was language so central to that project back then? What was the thinking?
Well, if you want a single unified national identity, you need a single language. Reza Shah saw linguistic diversity as a barrier to modernization and, frankly, control.
So erase the other languages.
That was the goal, and it led directly to Article 2 of the Education Law in 1939, which mandated that all instruction be in Farsi, period.
1939. So we're talking over 80 years of this specific policy being on the books.
That's right. 80 plus years where Turkish, Arabic, Baluchi tongues have been officially banned as the language you learn in.
And the enforcement wasn't gentle, was it? We know about the consequences for kids caught speaking their own language.
No, it wasn't gentle at all. We have documentation from Amnesty International back in '92, Human Rights Watch in 2009, detailing how children were routinely humiliated, sometimes fined, often mocked by teachers, by administrators, just for slipping into their mother tongue.
It boils down to that phrase teachers would whisper, or sometimes not whisper. Don't speak Turkish here. This is a school.
That phrase says it all, doesn't it? It's colonial, really, equating education itself with the dominant language, implying other languages are inherently uneducational.
And the state wasn't shy about this intent. You mentioned textbooks from that era.
Yes, the Ministry of Culture's Tamadani Now textbooks from 1938. They're quite explicit. Every lesson seemed to start with something like, "Our beautiful Persian language is the soul of the nation."
Wow. So Farsi wasn't just a tool for teaching. It was positioned as the marker of loyalty, the very essence of being part of this new nation.
It absolutely was proof of belonging. And maybe the most telling part is how little this core policy changed after the 1979 revolution.
The Islamic Republic kept it.
Largely, yes. Article 15 of the current constitution looks like a compromise on the surface. It says, okay, you can use regional languages for literature.
Literature, okay.
But, and this is the crucial part, it expressly forbids using those languages as the medium of learning for actual education.
Why is that distinction so critical? Allowing it for literature but not learning seems deceptive.
It's a classic containment strategy, you could say. Literature, culture, they're seen as relatively safe, harmless hobbies almost. It allows a language to exist on the margins culturally.
It keeps it out of power.
Exactly. It ensures Turkish, for example, can't be the language of science or law or government or serious academic discourse within the official system.
And the practical result after all these decades.
Even now, today, there isn't a single university in the entire country offering a full academic program in Turkish. The legal walls built in the 1930s are still standing strong. It shuts off entire avenues for intellectual and professional life in your own language.
Which brings us squarely to the human cost, the personal impact. We ask you, our viewers, just try to imagine this. You're 6 years old, first grade maybe, in a classroom in Tabriz.
Yeah.
You answer a question, maybe asked to use the restroom, whatever. You use Turkish because it's what you know. And suddenly, the teacher corrects you sharply. Maybe the other kids laughs.
That moment, that specific moment is where it starts. The realization that your voice, the sound of your home, is somehow wrong in this public space. It doesn't belong.
It's incredibly damaging. You mentioned psychologists have a term for the long-term effects.
They do, especially those working with diaspora communities who've lived through this. They call it internalized linguistic shame.
Internalized linguistic shame. Tell us a bit more about that. How does it play out later in life? What are these invisible walls it builds?
Well, the walls are often made of silence and fear. Fear of your accent being mocked, fear of sounding uneducated. So a bright student might just not speak up in class.
Even if they know the answer.
Even if they know the answer. And this fear can shape huge life decisions. Career paths, for instance. Pushing South Azerbaijani Turks maybe towards fields where verbal expression in Farsi is less critical. Away from law, or high-level administration, or even teaching.
Because they've internalized the message that their natural voice isn't professional enough.
Precisely. It's a system that subtly encourages self-marginalization as a way to cope, to survive socially and economically. It's language apartheid building walls inside the mind, not just in the law books.
We got a message from a viewer in Ardabil that really hit home on this. He shared this memory. He was 7.
Just 7.
And a teacher made him stand on a bench in front of everyone. His crime, he said, Anna, the Turkish word for mother instead of the Farsi madar.
And the teacher's reaction?
Told the whole class, this boy doesn't speak properly. Public humiliation for using the word for his own mother.
That's incredibly powerful and sadly common. It's not just about correcting a word, it's associating the mother tongue itself with being improper, even dirty.
He said the impact was immediate. He stopped talking in class for years.
That silence is the goal, isn't it?
But here's the resilience part. He now lives in Toronto, and he told us he's actively teaching his daughter Turkish, specifically so she never feels that shame.
That's the resistance. Reclaiming that core word. Anna, what the state tries to do by forcing Madar is replace that fundamental emotional bond, the language of home, with the language of the state.
So teaching Turkish in Toronto becomes a political act.
Absolutely. It shows that assimilation, however enforced, is never total. The memory, the feeling of the anadili, the mother tongue, persists. It defies the state narrative.
And this whole system, it's not just about feelings or psychology, right? There's a direct link between this linguistic hierarchy and, well, money, economic opportunity.
Definitely. Now we're shifting into sociolinguistics. Researchers like Timo Derezi back in 2019 have analyzed this. They call it vertical bilingualism.
Vertical, meaning a clear power ranking, up and down.
Exactly. Farsi is deliberately set up as the high language, the language of government, power, higher education, better jobs, and Turkish. It's relegated to the low language.
Home, family, the street, maybe, private life.
Right. And this isn't just theoretical. Studies confirm this ranking directly impacts your income potential, your job prospects, even who you might marry, especially in bigger cities. Language becomes a gatekeeper to social and economic mobility.
And the ultimate gatekeeper seems to be that big university entrance exam, the concours. How does that exam cement this hierarchy for those unfamiliar with it?
The concours, yes. It's this massive, nationwide, high-stakes exam. Your score basically determines your future, which university you can get into, if any.
And it's all in Farsi, presumably.
All in Farsi. And not just basic Farsi. A Ministry of Science report from 2020 confirmed the exam heavily rewards really deep idiomatic knowledge. Proverbs, complex sentence structures, nuances a native speaker absorbs naturally.
Which puts non-native speakers at a huge disadvantage.
A massive disadvantage. If you're a South Azerbaijani Türk who only started formal Farsi at 7, maybe your parents don't speak it fluently. You're statistically less likely to score well. It's almost designed to filter you out.
So the language barrier in the concours effectively becomes an economic barrier.
It absolutely does. It locks in the linguistic hierarchy as an economic one. And this isn't helped by state media either.
How so?
Well, think about state television. How often are Turkic accents used for comic relief, played for laughs? It constantly reinforces the idea that this low language is funny, maybe backwards, certainly not serious or fit for the public sphere.
Yet, despite all of this, a century of deliberate policy, legal restrictions, social pressure, economic barriers. The Turkish language in South Azerbaijan hasn't disappeared, it's survived.
It has, and that survival has involved incredible resilience and creativity. You look back at the 1950s during heavy repression, what do you find? Secret poetry circles and breathe.
People were risking punishment just to read and write in Turkish.
Exactly, keeping the literary tradition alive underground. Then in the 1980s, you had illegal newsletters circulating, focusing on history, on identity, pushing back against the official narrative.
And now, the digital age seems to have opened up completely new fronts for this resistance.
Oh, it's a game changer, totally. The resistance today is online, it's decentralized, it crosses borders. Think about the explosion of Turkish language podcasts, YouTube channels, Telegram groups.
Every word uploaded is an act of defiance.
Every single word. It's creating a permanent, accessible archive of the language and culture that directly counters a century of attempted erasure. The state can't control the internet the way it controlled print media or schools.
And people are still taking risks in the physical world too, right? There have been public protests.
Yes, definitely. A significant example was in 2016. Thousands of South Azerbaijanis demonstrated publicly right in front of the Ministry of Education.
What were they demanding?
Bilingual schooling, the right for their children to learn in their mother tongue. It was a demand for basic dignity, framed as a fundamental right. And how did the regime respond?
Let me guess. Provocation. Security threat.
Labeled it provocation, exactly. Standard procedure.
This ties into the fight over names too, doesn't it? The regime's insistence on using the term Azeri.
Yes, that's a very deliberate tactic. Using Azeri is an attempt to diminish the identity, to make it sound merely regional, like a local dialect, maybe even a bit quaint. It strips away the connection to the broader Turkic world and its historical significance.
It tries to make it apolitical, less threatening.
Precisely. It frames it as a purely cultural, local thing, not a national identity with political aspirations.
So reclaiming the name Turk is fundamental to reclaiming identity.
It's absolutely fundamental. It's about refusing the label imposed by the state, the colonizer's term, if you will. Insisting on Turk connects the community to its history, its language family, and asserts a unified identity that the state tries to fragment and deny.
So looking forward, the digital age really does pose a serious challenge to this kind of linguistic apartheid. It seems harder to maintain that control now.
Much harder. Linguistic exclusion thrives on centralized control of information and education. The internet inherently breaks that down. New media, maybe even AI translation tools in the future, they empower individual voices. They allow stories to be shared globally, chipping away at that enforced silence, one upload, one post, one conversation at a time.
It suggests that technology itself aids the resistance.
In many ways, yes. It provides the platform. At the end of the day, this fight over language, it goes so much deeper than just words. It's a fight for justice. It's about the fundamental human right to think, to dream, to learn, to connect with your heritage in your own language.
Because losing a language isn't just losing words.
No. When a state succeeds in erasing a child's mother tongue, humanity itself loses an entire way of seeing the world, a unique perspective. That mask of a monolithic Persia, it was constructed using words, using linguistic policy. And history suggests it will ultimately be undone by words too, by the voices refusing to be silenced.
Every story has two sides. Here, we lift the veil, revealing what history tried to hide. You've been watching Unmasking Persia. Like, share, and help us uncover more.